Chadesh, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu. Chadesh, 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 Chadesh Yameinu. Hashivenu Nashuva O Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem Chadesh 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 Yameinu Chadesh 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 Yameinu Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to where you are, return to where you are, born and reborn and reborn. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to where you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn and reborn. Return to where you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn and reborn. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Chadesh Yameinu. Hashivenu B'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekede ספר חיים, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה. ספר חיים, ספר חיים, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה. נזכר ונכתב לפניך, לפניך. נזכר ונכתב לפניך, לפניך. ספר. Yeah. Way too loud, Evan.
No, the guitar is fine. My monitor, please don't turn it down anymore. That's That's good. The vocals are too loud though on the monitor. You can turn my guitar up a little bit in this monitor. Please. Check 1, 2. The vocal mics and are going to feedback in these monitors constantly. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, da, 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 that's much better. Yeah, that's getting real close. That's really close. That's good. I like that. Thank you.
Check.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
Autumn, I think we're ready when you are. procedure up here. And after all, that's the point of writing, is that we can understand. Hey, you know it's not good.
That's a good point.
I didn't hear you. You ready? Y'all ready? Leslie, Alan, Andrew? Evan, we good? Autumn, we good? Whenever you're ready, just give us a thumbs up. We're live?
Daniel, you ready?
Are you ready? Let's do it.
Completely unprepared.
This is reality. And you're completely unprepared.
Come back for me.
Gemar Chatima Tova, everyone. Good Yantif. Traditionally, the first words that are said when we enter into a sanctuary are Matovu. How good it is to be together. When you're in a traditional setting, you'll notice that as people walk in, they kind of mumble it to themselves. It feels different this year. It feels different saying Matovu because how good it is for us to be together. Particularly on this Yom Kippurim, this day when we are called to contemplate our own mortality. What Rabbi Susan last night referred to as a dress rehearsal for our own death. We traditionally dress in the clothes of burial, the kittel, the white. And we contemplate what it would mean if this was the end of our story. Have we lived the lives? Have we lived the lives that we want to have lived? The power of Yom Kippur, of course, is that it's never too late to change. It's never too late to look at ourselves in the eye, to look in the mirror, to see that the story that has been told about us, our story that we have told to the world, is not yet over. There is still possibility to make new paths. It feels a little different to contemplate our mortality here. On a day when we know that 1 in 500 Americans has died of COVID. So much loss in our country, so much loss in our world, so much loss in our lives. And so we hold all of this together, our own mortality, the fragility of our world, and how good it is for all of us to be together here today. For all of us to be gathered, a group of vaccinated folks, a group wearing masks, a group working to keep each other safe. Not to just keep ourselves safe, but to keep each other safe. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. Page 131. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Originally words that were supposed to be a curse that turned into a blessing. The Midrash says that when the foreign prophet Bilam looked out at us, intending to give us a curse, he saw our tents, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ohalecha Yaakov. He saw our tents, he saw our dwelling places, and he saw that this was a place where the human dignity of everyone was respected, where everyone could enter, where everyone could be accepted. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha And in just a moment, we lift ourselves up spiritually, we lift ourselves up physically with the words of Baruch Hu, with this moment of Jewish geography, right? A different kind of Jewish geography, where wherever we find ourselves, tradition says we turn towards that Ir Shalom, that city of peace, that is the root of this word Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. Wherever we find ourselves, we turn towards that Ir Shalom, towards that Yerushalayim. Yes, in the physical sense. Yes, we turn east. Yes, we turn towards that real, beautiful, and broken city. But even more so, we turn towards the other Yerushalayim, the Yerushalayim on high, the image of the world as it should be, the image where all of our cities are Ir Shalom, where all of our cities are cities of peace. I invite you to raise yourself up spiritually or physically as we call each other to prayer with the words of Baruch Hu on page 136.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la.
Can be seated. On page 138 is an interpretation of one of the blessings that comes just before the Shema. Ahava Rabbah. With great love, you have loved us. And I think we're going to invite Melissa Bennett to come and lead us in this prayer. The translation is by a classmate of ours, Rabbi Rami Shapiro, who came once and led us through this wonderful prayer himself. You know, the order of the prayers are, we call each other to prayer, and then we're supposed to open up to something greater than ourselves. So we look around to creation with Yotzer Or, the light, that great light that we're given during the day. And then we begin to see that it's not just creation, it's all of us and the love that comes through us. And once we're able to do that, then we shout out those words of the Shema, words that come actually from that source. Let's say, listen, you God wrestlers, listen, you people. Adonai Eloheinu, the plurality of godliness is really echad. It's really one. We are one. And one day, because of this love, we'll begin to act that way.
We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending
to hear. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
Thank you. Melissa and Micah Rose are the co-leaders of our racial justice Chavurah, and in her community, they call her Rev Melissa. We call her Rav Melissa. Same letters in Hebrew, right? So Rev and Rav, we thank you for reminding us how deeply we are loved.
Listen. God is one, God alone, a lonely God. God integrated and unified. Seamless embrace of existence. Oh, holy God, I don't know anything. But I can witness. I climb up that large ayin. I slide down that big dalet. Or turn it around in dyslexia. plow the language like a palindrome. Da, no. God is one. God alone, only God, lonely God. Ask God in your prayers to lose that loneliness. We are witnessing, at least along for the ride, trying to know something when knowing is not everything. Oh, holy God, we are trying to do something right after all. When we say Shema Yisrael, we close our eyes, or we take out the eyes, I, apostrophe S, entirely. And on Yom Kippur, we sing both, the call and the response. In this traditional chant, I'm going to do it 3 times. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Come with me now. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto
Chant together on page 141. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha Veshinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlaktecha v'derech, u'shofbecha uvkumecha, u'kshartam le'od al yadecha, v'hayu latotafot bein einecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskaru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lechem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. There is a tradition that says that the sea did not part until we were up to here. We all had to be willing to risk our lives to save our future. Every one of us, not a certain percentage, no such thing as herd immunity for freedom, crossing the sea. We did it for each other, for the common good. Until all were safe, none could be safe. Until all were free, none would ever be completely free. Most walked through the sea, some looking up and some down, some in silence and some in song, some even danced. But me, I stayed in the waters, with the waters up to here, and I will stay. I will wait. I'll wait for as long as it takes in the sea, until all join together, caring about the other, until all feel the potential of this moment, until all the lands sing to each other these songs of protest, songs of promise, songs of justice, songs of freedom.
On page 143, please. מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, דורתי לא תוסף אלה, שירה חדשה שבחוגלים לשמך שפת הים, יחד יחד יחד, יחד כולם כולם, עובדו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופדי חינומך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Then Miriam Haniviyah, the prophetess, she took a drum in her hand and we followed her with drums and dancing, and Miriam, 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 she chanted with us. Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'oka, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'oka, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'oka, Shiru le'Adonai ki ga'oka, Sus v'rocho rama v'yam,
What do you think, Melissa? Next year we give everyone tambourines? Sounds good. Good Yontif, everybody. And it's good to see you all. And a prayer for whatever good those sirens are off to do, we hope, to help and to save and to heal. We begin the next set of prayers with words from what I call the Psalm of Opening. It's got that patach word. So it's about open souls and open minds. The psalm itself says that our mouths should be open with words of hope and words of praise. I like to say open arms. We can add this year open air revival tents. So if you're able, please stand so we can begin the tefillah with the Psalm of Opening.
Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Yufi Yagid. Utfi Yagid Tehillah. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Yufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehillah. Ya la 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 Adonai. Tehillah Techa. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tifta. Ya la 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 Yufi Yagid. Ufi Yagid Tehillah Techa.
Rabbi Susan talked last night about her student pulpit in Jackson, Tennessee. Mine was in Hickory, North Carolina, and my first time there was Rosh Hashanah, and I clapped. They were wonderful congregation, but I clapped during one of the songs, and I heard someone stage whisper in the front row, "I hope he doesn't clap on Yom Kippur." Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Leah v'Elohei Rachel Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chazdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'Ezrat Sarah.
זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים.
Page 145, let's read together on the bottom interpretation. Praise be the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. Praise be the God of our mothers, of Sarah, of Rebekah, of Leah, and of Rachel. Praise be the source of strength and courage, the source of kindness and good deeds. Praise be the source of gentleness and love, of softness and kind words. Praise be the man who transcends strength through gentleness. Praise be the woman who perfects gentleness through strength. Praise be the person who acts according to the best that is within. Praise be the person who reaches out to touch the best in others. Praise be the gentle faithfulness of Abraham and the valiant strength of Sarah. Praise be the God who created with divinity a woman and a man. Remember us for life and write us in the book of life for yet another year. Page 147. Where it says, Unatane tokef kedushat hayom, ki hu nora ve'ayom. Let us proclaim the sacred power of this day, this Yom Kippur, for it is awesome and full of dread. On the next page. B'rosh Hashanah yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatemun, yechatemun. B'rosh Hashanah yikatevun, yikatevun, uvyom tzom kippur yechatemun, yechatemun. Again, we'll read together. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass on? How many shall come to be? Who shall live and who shall die? Who shall see ripe age and who shall not? Who shall perish by fire and who by water? Who by sword and who by beast? Who by hunger and who by thirst? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who shall be secure and who shall be driven? Who shall be tranquil and who shall be troubled? Who shall be poor and who shall be rich? Who shall be humbled and who exalted? There's a rabbi, contemporary, I think a classmate of Rabbi Susan and Rabbi Jim. His name is Rami Shapiro. He came here a number of years ago. He also writes liturgy, contemporary Jewish liturgy, and often when he has the name of God to translate, Yod-He Vav-He, he actually made the choice to refer to God in the English as reality with a capital R. So you know that's God as reality. And it is true there are things in reality, many things that we cannot control, and we just read them, listed many of them. We can't control who will live this year and who will pass. But the tradition tells us that although that is true, we can control something, which is how we respond to reality, how we respond to whatever comes our way, whatever comes into our life as a society. And the formula is, of course, teshuvah, turning and positive transformation, tefillah, sacred, deliberate, holy words, and tzedakah, sharing our resources with those in need. Those, the tradition says, temper judgment's severe decree. And so we fill the spaces between us with what we can control to be our most holy selves as we sing Kedusha for holiness.
נקדש שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו משמם עולם, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא זה על זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו, אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו אדיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, לרחמיו ולעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך, ונצח נצחים קדושך להקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. A few months back, I called a CRC member just to check up on her, woman in her 90s who lives on her own. I asked her how she was holding up, and she started to cry. I asked her, what's wrong and what do you need? And I wasn't sure, of course, what I was going to expect the answer to be. Made up all kinds of things in my head before she answered. This is what she said to me, and the reason she was crying. She said she needs ways to stay involved in Tikkun Olam, in social justice, in making a difference. Particularly, she said she wanted to do something about climate change and how to leave the world in better shape for the young generation. She said, how about if we got a group of young climate change activists and I gathered old folks like myself, people who could be their grandparents, and we stand with them together at a protest, with us telling them, the elders telling the youth, we support you, we care about you, we believe in you. And knowing this person, she's going to make it happen. So watch for that. So these are the ways we seem shalom, the ways we make peace and wholeness wherever we are, whoever we are, we can seem shalom. Page 152.
כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה ניזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים לחיים טובים ולשלום
Good Yom Tov. I know this isn't the traditional sermon slot, but I think as I make my way through my sermon, you'll understand why it's placed here in our service. So, there's a short and powerful Talmudic discussion I came across in Tractate Yoma, a book which specifically talks about the laws and customs of Yom Kippur. It's a conversation between two rabbis. There's Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Ashi, about a verse from Proverbs. The verse they're talking about says, if there is anxiety in someone's heart, let them quash it. So here they are, 2,000 years ago, discussing the verse's meaning. Rabbi Ami says this verse means a person should forcefully push it out of their mind, meaning when we're feeling anxious, we should try to banish our concerns from our thoughts. But Rabbi Ashi teaches that it means something different. His understanding is the verse means a person should tell others their concerns, which in turn will lower their anxiety. So, in the spirit of Rabbi Ashi, and in the spirit of believing that sharing and being open about our anxieties will help, I want to take you back almost exactly 2 years ago to our last pre-pandemic High Holy Days in 2019. It was only my second year here at CRC. We were at the J in the enormous basketball court turned sanctuary. The white curtains were around the perimeter, and more people than I'd ever spoken in front of before were filling up the seats, or at least that's what it felt like. Services started, and before I knew it, we had arrived at the time I was supposed to give my sermon. I walked up to the podium, sermon in hand, started speaking, and experienced the worst panic attack I've ever had in my whole life. Somehow, I made it through the entire teaching. As soon as I was finished, I immediately left the stage, sure that everyone watching and listening knew what was going on. They knew that I was freaking out. Daniel, of course, knew that I'd had an awful panic attack, but he kept insisting nobody there could tell. So a few days later, I finally watched the recording of my sermon, and he was right. Although my insides were in complete turmoil, my hands were numb, kind of like they are right now, and my brain was foggy, I had kept my composure, and my voice was steady. But it didn't matter. The damage had been done. During the following weeks and months, I discovered I had developed panic disorder, and it started to seep into every area of my life. I stopped being able to drive on the highway. Instead of taking 40 to work, which is about a 15-minute drive, I took Olive Boulevard, terrified to go on the highway, which was a 35-minute commute each way. If I had a funeral or a wedding, I wouldn't sleep or eat for days beforehand. My stomach tied in knots. But the worst part of it all was the constant refrain in the back of my mind, always asking a variation of the same question. What if it happens now? What if I have a panic attack here? How will I escape? It was intolerable. I couldn't live like this anymore. The anxiety and the panic felt like they were eating me alive. Just over a month ago, I was watching the Summer Olympics in Tokyo, as I'm sure many of us were, when Simone Biles pulled out of the women's team gymnastics final. I remember seeing her on TV and thinking, I know that look. I know that overwhelmed feeling. I wasn't surprised then when she said outright, with no pretense, that she needed to step back and focus on her own mental health. The holidays ended that year, and I started Googling, looking for a therapist who specializes in panic disorder. And that's when I discovered cognitive behavioral therapy. It was a breath of fresh air. For the first time, it felt like there was a way out. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick. But I didn't have to continue living as a shell of myself. I didn't have to continue having my whole life defined by the boundaries that my anxiety set for me. So beginning with the Jewish month of Elul, about 6 weeks ago, we started a journey of personal introspection, a cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of our souls. Tradition calls us to explore the questions, who have I been this past year? What am I proud of, and what am I not so proud of? What do I need to change? We have a month to explore and toss around core questions such as these. This contemplation and personal scrutiny brings us to Rosh Hashanah, literally the head of the year, where we celebrate the beginning of a new cycle. We eat apples and honey for a sweet new year and enjoy round challah, which reminds us that we are beginning yet another trip around the sun. But in the background of our liturgy and celebration, there's a sense of time speeding up. Images of the gates opening, the book of life being debated and inscribed. And 10 days later, here we are at Yom Kippur, gathered this morning for the Day of Atonement. Even if we haven't observed Elul or Rosh Hashanah, it's not too late. Today is the apex, the Shabbat of all Shabbatot. The ancient rabbis understood this day as a dress rehearsal for our own deaths, a day on which we fast the best we can, abstain from physical pleasures, and wear white, reminiscent of our own burial shroud, all to force us to assess ourselves one last time, to look our own mortality in the face and ask the painful yet crucial question, is this the life I want to be living? One of the early leaders of the Musar movement, a virtues-based approach to Jewish ethics, Rabbi Simcha Zissel Zev, said, remembering death in the proper way can bring a person to the ultimate joy. Often it takes something as dramatic as looking death in the face to really awaken us to change, to force us out of the rut we are stuck in. Early on in my cognitive behavioral therapy sessions, my therapist told me a story about marbles that has become something of a mantra for my healing. It goes like this. Imagine your brain is a mountain of sand, and you're standing at the top. You take a few marbles out of your pocket, set them down, and watch them roll to the bottom. They create small grooves in the earth as they roll. Now, imagine you throw 100 marbles. Each of these also rolls down the mountain, but most find the grooves made by previous marbles, rather than creating new trenches as they go. Pretty soon, the grooves are established, and no matter how many thousands of marbles you throw from the top of the mountain, they will almost inevitably find already made paths and routes. That's how I felt with my panic attacks. No matter what I did, no matter where I went, the marbles of my life that I sent down the mountain found their way to those now familiar grooves of crippling anxiety that kept me from living the life I wanted to, kept me from being the person I wanted to be. But the beauty is this, the end of the story. We can always take a marble, press it into the mountainside ourselves, and as I remind myself every day, we can consciously create a new marble path. Yom Kippur is the forceful push of our Jewish calendar to create new marble paths. It's our time to say, this isn't easy, and in fact, at times, it's downright painful. But I'm committed to being a different version of myself, to pushing that marble into a new space on the mountain, to creating a new groove. Every year we gather for Yom Kippur, and we approach these same words that force us to face our own mortality, to consider our final moments, to feel the gates closing, and experience the uncertainty of whether or not we will be inscribed in the book of life. We're about to enter into Vidui, the liturgical heart of Yom Kippur, and the center of the work that we are called to do on this day. Vidui literally means confession, but unlike Catholic confession to a priest, this is the work of confessing who we have been to ourselves. Traditionally, the only other time we are called to Vidui is right before our deaths, which tradition says helps us die with a sense of wholeness and completion. We also say it today, inviting the image of our own mortality to be a teacher, praying it gives us the momentum and determination to get out of the rut we are stuck in. So this is my hope, this is my blessing for us on this Yom Kippur, that we have the courage to honestly examine who we've really been this past year, that we use today as a catalyst for personal growth and change, and that we take the steps necessary to create new marble paths for 5782. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Shakoach, Rabbi Karen. And as Karen said, we are entering into what is the heart of the Yom Kippur service, just like the shofar, hearing the voice of the shofar is the heart of Rosh Hashanah. These confessions are the heart of Yom Kippur. I wanted to start with something that a classmate of mine from all those years ago wrote recently. His name is Michael Latz. He's a rabbi in Minneapolis. Last time I saw him, he came during Ferguson, where a whole bunch of Jewish folks and rabbis came to be with us. He wrote, "Confronted by a situation that makes us stare at the depths and extent of our vulnerability in the face, most of us want to flee. Here then is the message. You want to serve God? Run towards the very people and places you most want to run away from. You want to be religious? Learn to be present for other people when they are in pain. All the rest is commentary." We're on page 153. I'd like to ask that everyone that is able to please rise. Let's read together the words in the bold on the bottom. "I hereby forgive all who have hurt me, all who have wronged me, whether deliberately or inadvertently, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account. As I forgive and pardon those who have wronged me, may those whom I have harmed forgive and pardon me, whether I acted deliberately or inadvertently, whether by word or by deed." On the next page it says, "Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tavo lefanecha tefilatenu, va'al titalam mitchinatenu, she'ein anu azei panim ukashe oref, lomer lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, tzadikim anachnu ve'lo chatanu, aval anachnu chatanu, avinu, pashanu." Together, "Our God and God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our prayers may reach you. Do not be deaf to our pleas, for we are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say before you, Adonai, our God and God of all ages, we are perfect and we have not sinned. Rather do we confess, we have gone astray, we have sinned, we have transgressed." Please be seated. And so this service and then later at Nila, we have these confessions. And, our job is to try to find ourselves in these transgressions. But even when we don't find ourselves, the tradition teaches us, because so much of the language of confession is, in Yom Kippur, is plural. So even when we don't find ourselves, we have to acknowledge that we all have a role in all of the transgressions that are committed in the world. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel of blessed memory, it's well known that he said that few are actually guilty, few are evil, but all are responsible. So what I'd like to do in this section is on pages 155 all the way to the middle of, or near the first third of 157. I'm going to ask that you read these to yourself, as many of them as you can. And again, do it slowly and try to find yourself in these transgressions, your role in these transgressions. I think many people know there's a tradition where people, when they read the confessions, they kind of clomp at their heart, trying to do a little of that affliction that is Yom Kippur. I know other people who say, maybe we should massage our hearts to soften our hearts up and allow them to acknowledge our transgressions and that we need to do tshuva and turn and change. Whatever it is that works for you, we'll give each other a few minutes to read these. And then we'll stand and collectively read some together. So a few moments to read with purpose and intentionality these transgressions called al-chet. Now, once again, if you're able, please stand. We'll read in the English the transgressions listed on pages 157 through the top of 159. What I'd like to do is read them out loud with all of you and then stop just briefly between each one again. So they're just not, rote words, sort of mindless, that don't register. So let's read them and let them register. Let's recognize them. Try to recognize ourselves within them, so that we really do the work of atonement, at one and teshuvah, of transformation. And so we begin. The sin we have committed against you by malicious gossip. The sin we have committed against you by sexual immorality. And the sin we have committed against you by gluttony. The sin we have committed against you by narrow-mindedness. The sin we have committed against you by fraud and falsehood. And the sin we have committed against you by hating without cause. The sin we have committed against you by our arrogance. The sin we have committed against you by our insolence. And the sin we have committed against you by our irreverence. The sin we have committed against you by our hypocrisy. The sin we have committed against you by passing judgment on others. And the sin we have committed against you by exploiting the weak. The sin we have committed against you by giving and taking bribes. the sin we have committed against you by giving way to our hostile impulses. And the sin we have committed against you by running to do evil. I want to ask for just one more moment for each of us to name and to reflect on a transgression, a missing of the mark that has not been listed on the pages, something that we can privately, but with one another all around us as community, confess to. Ve'al kulam Elohai slichot, salach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these, O God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. So we remain elevated spiritually or physically, but you should always feel comfortable sitting if you need to as well. The 13 qualities on page 159. I don't remember the first time I experienced the 13 attributes. It's one of those memories that's more an emotion, more than a memory for me. That feeling of being surrounded by a group of people. It was probably over at Coca, with the ark open. Jim, if you wouldn't mind, would you open the ark for us? With the Torahs there and these 13 attributes that we're told. These 13 attributes that come straight from the Torah, that we're told describe the universe, that describe God. And yet, I think it's hard to look out at our world and see a universe, to see a world that is slow to anger at times. Love can feel so absent. Compassion and truth can feel so far. And so I think there's a lesson in the repetition. Traditionally, we chant, we intone these words 3 times. Because 3 times, halakha, Jewish law says, 3 times makes it a contract, makes it unbreakable, makes it a sacred vow. And so I think that these 13 attributes aren't a description of the world as it is, but instead, this is our attempt to bind our world, to bind ourselves, to bind each other, to bind our God into a world of love and compassion and justice, a world that is slow to anger and quick to forgive, a world where for thousands of generations the good goes on. Page 159. I invite you, we'll intone this 3 times. I invite you to say it with us as we face towards the ark. Adonai, Adonai, Erachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, v'ra
ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה.
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
For more years than I want to tell you, I never heard a word of the service. I was so anxious about having to sing. I would just be counting the pages till I had to stand up and sing. So Karen, I hear you. But you all were so wonderful and kind and supportive and helpful that the days of awe kind of became the days of awe shucks. Because you were all so wonderful, and I realized I had something to give you and you had something to give me back. So you cured me. Thank you. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, V'yolol aleinu, V'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalek Tever, Ve'kerev Eram, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalek Osar, Umastin Le'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu,
done so much. When we first knew that we would have a building, one of the dreams, I had a few dreams about this building. I dreamt of the floor that we put in. I dreamt of a few things, that we would have a sanctuary the length of this Torah, and we built it with lots of intention. We also thought about the outside being a gift to the community, that it would become a fitness course for the soul. Every day coming to CRC, I would drive through Forest Park and I would see the fitness courses, stop at different stations. I said, wouldn't it be nice to have a fitness course for the soul? And so with Elisa and Rabbi Randy and many others over these last almost 20 years, really, it's taking shape. We have a labyrinth. We have this amazing CRC farm with Karen Flotty and her team. We've got meditation spaces. We've got an orchard. Do you know that we have apple, pear, and fig trees? These are fig trees, and they actually have figs on them. So there's a lot of intention in this space. And if you walk around, there are places to stop and reflect and strengthen our souls, so that when we are confronted with whatever it is that faces us, we respond with holiness, with intention. Ta'amod Harishona, who's also the Yachidah, the first and the only Aliyah today. Alitza Elka Bat Sharon Vasara, Aliyah La Torah.
Baruch et Adonai Amvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan latu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
The traditional portion for this morning is from Leviticus. It tells the story of the scapegoat. Not the kind of scapegoat that bullies pick on to deflect attention from themselves. We know about bullies in this neighborhood. Not this.
Maybe they heard me. I don't know. I know, that's not a nice thing to do on Yom Kippur, but I have one more vidui later, so sorry.
It's also not the scapegoat that is the most vulnerable of society and is used by people in power to blame all of their problems on so they can keep their power and their privilege. No, the scapegoat of Leviticus offers itself as a way to take the sins of the community into the wilderness that we may begin again. The scapegoat of Leviticus invites us to take our sins and put them where we can see them clearly and send them off so we will not repeat them in the coming year.
And we love this portion. It's like playing telephone. Because of its mystery and because of its compilation of imagery. True. It is one of the most secret portions of the Torah. And Jimmy says,
I'm not taking responsibility for this one. He says, to understand this may be the secret to understanding everything. You good? I'm going to translate. What? Not yet? Oh, okay.
And God spoke to Moses. Oh, go ahead.
I am writing this sitting on a hill in a wilderness somewhere in the United States of America. I am here for purification, I think, maybe rededication. That is exactly what I have come here to do. I haven't spoken for days. I have brought an instrument to make music with a notebook to write in a book.
Speak to Aaron, your brother, lest you die. And bring these animals for an offering of a sin, and wear these fine clothes. You're going to have some really nice clothes.
There are many animals here. It is a wild place. I am a guest here. The wilderness. I asked the goats, the horses, the brush rangers, the bottom dwellers to allow me to squat on their ground, to pray here, to play my instrument. It was pretty, but not why I came. On the 5th day, this day, I began to ask for forgiveness. I sank deeper into silence, and an animal I cannot identify wandered by and nibbled from a loaf of bread I carried with me. I spread a piece of bread with peanut butter, Jif smooth, and the animal signaled to me in some abstract trans-species way its approval.
And you wash your clothes and you wash your skin. And take 2 animals for a sin offering. One offering and the other a sin offering for God, and one for Azazel.
Then the animal spoke. It's about forgiveness, isn't it? The animal said. Yes, it's about forgiveness. Give me your burdens, the animal said. I am a load-bearing animal. I am a yoked animal. I submit to the yoke of your burdens, and I carry them gladly into the wilderness. So I took my burdens. I took my self-consciousness, my separation, my isolation, my flight, my fear, especially my fear, everything that separates me from God and all that I love the most. And I laid them on the shoulders of the animal, on the back of this beautiful yoked beast. I gave up my fear, and I watched as the animal disappeared into the hills. I lifted my hands and said to the trees, to the sky, to the stones, to the dirt especially, to the mud, is this the way it works? And from a distance I heard, yes, this is precisely the way it works.
And on one of the animals you put a lot, for God, and the other one, Azazel, for Azazel in the wilderness.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam nata b'torchenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
With our hearts opened by Torah, it's our tradition to offer a mishaberach, to call upon our ancestors to bring healing to the sick. This is a serious time to offer healing prayers. So, of course, we offer prayers to all of those who are struggling with COVID,
with cancer, with Alzheimer's, all of those who are struggling to find a place in our hospitals across the country and across the world because they are too full. A healing prayer for the caregivers who are spent and so tired. A healing prayer for the body and the soul. A special prayer for Lila Sauer, the daughter of Stephanie, the granddaughter of our member who really started our second day Rosh Hashanah service, Renee Winter. She's struggling in Austin right now, and I promised we would send our strongest healing prayers to that child. And I know that there are people here who would like to say names out loud. We have a long list that we say every time. There are people on our list that that you've come to know every Shabbat because we say their names. So to all of those names, I ask if there's anybody here who would like to call out a name. For your mother. Thank you, Rick. We send healing to her. Simon. Anybody else? I'll just kind of go from side to side. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Gail. Ray? Thank you, dear. You can say the names, sure. Say the names. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. Vivian, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, for Lois, thank you. Rob? We pray for them, thank you. Anybody else have a name on this? Yeah. Thank you, Carl. You kind of started us off on this, Al. Many years ago, Al said, we got to do healing prayers, And so with for Frank Wasserman. The spirit of Sarah Ellen, who believed in angels. Thank you. Yeah. For Nina. Oh, boy. Thank you. Longtime member. Yeah, in the back. Thank you, dear. Thank you. And for you and your family and the loss of this year. Anybody else? Yeah. Thank you. Good to say them out loud. Yeah. Sylvia? Thank you, dear. My eyes aren't good enough to see. I don't want to miss anybody. Say it out loud. Oh, right here. Yeah. Oh. Thank you for Daryl. Did I see one more? All right. For all of these names we've named, for all of the ones that we hold in our hearts, all we've got is the holy chutzpah to shout it out. We don't always get what we ask for, but at least we know we've tried. We've done what we could. Gotten them the best care, made space, been smart, and prayed with all our hearts for healing.
For the healing of the spirit, the healing of the body, for those we know, for those we don't know. On my right, the angel Michael, on my left, the angel Gabriel. In front of me, the angel Uriel. Behind me, the angel Raphael. Above my head, above my head, above my head, above my head, Shekhinate. Michael, who is like God, Gabriel, God is my strength. Uriel, God is my light. Raphael, God is my healer. Above my head, above my head, above my head, Shekhinate. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim, blessed are you, great healer. Amen.
We Please rise so we can return the Torah to the ark with the words of Eitz Chaim, reminding us that she is surrounded by all of these beautiful trees. She also is our tree of life.
Eitz Chaim lamachazik ima v'tom mereha meusha deracheha darchei noam v'chol netiroteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu
We don't end this service, for this is a day that we stay together, that we pray, that we learn, that we long, that we do that cheshbon hanefesh and that soul searching that Rabbi Karen has challenged us to do on this day, to take this time, this holy time. So we will continue this day with breakout sessions that will begin at 12:30. They'll be walking the labyrinth with Rabbi Randy, Karen Flotty, and Robert Fishbone, who have created this amazing sacred space for us with gardens and intentional walking. Remember that our Hebrew word for Jewish law is halakha, to walk in that holy path. So many good ways to walk. And then at 1:30, a look at the new survey on the experience of Jews of color. A panel led by Rabbi Daniel will be in person right here in our tent, our Ohel Moed, and also via Zoom. So those of you who are out there who would like to participate in that, should be a wonderful, really important session for us. It's time for us to begin to do this real work, to figure out how we are part of the problem and how we can also be part of the solution. And then also at 2:30, Jim and I will, we took on the Psalms project this year. We did 150 Psalms to heal the soul of the nation. And actually walking that path, doing that every morning for as long as we did it, for months and months and months. It says you try to heal someone else and you get healing yourself. And I think, I don't know, I speak for myself, but Jimmy and I will talk about what that process was like, which Psalms really broke us apart inside and helped us put ourselves back together. So we'll be leading a session in using the Psalms as a path through the valley of shadows, and how these Psalms really can come alive and speak to us. Remember, they were created by people who were walking through the valley of shadows. They were created by people who had longing and desires and were broken, much like we are today. And then at 3:30, right here, you don't have to be a child. There is still space to register for this service. The children's service will be right here with those rabbis. Yeah. Some things you just kind of get old. I don't know what it is. And then at 5:30, we'll all be back here. And there's room to come back. Please join us. It's so important that we conclude these services with Yizkor, with our memorial service. And I will say every name, because the liturgy for that service are the names. So I have the names of the people of CRC who have died from the very beginning. I have the names of the people who have died in this past year. And if you have names, you can hand me a slip of paper, and like I always do, I will read those names as well. But the names are also going to be streamed. You'll see them. The names from our Yisker book, which include many of the names of people who have given us life and we remember, who are filling this space between us. Those names will be up on the screen as well. And we'll conclude with Neela. So I'm supposed to say thank you now, I think. Am I supposed to say thank you now? Or maybe we'll say thank you later. We got a lot of thank yous, you know. Huh? Let's just say thank you. How about one big thank you? Thank you. And we'll name everybody later at the end, at the very end. But clearly, thank you to all of you who got vaccinated. And I know that not everybody was ready to, but some of you got vaccinated to come to be with us today. Thank you for that. Thank you for your masks. We all tested right before we came out here so we could be masked and unmasked and not feel like we were putting anybody at risk. It's so important that we keep each other safe now, especially for our children who can't be vaccinated yet. We have to keep them safe. So I guess we just give each other a little blessing before we leave. And we do have one more prayer that we do that Bonya gave us, right? This day on page 177.
Hayom te'amtzeinu.
Let's say together. This day strengthen us.
Amen. Hayom tevarcheinu.
This day bless us.
Amen. Hayom tigadleinu.
This day lift us up, exalt us.
Amen. Hayom tidrashenu letova.
This day look with favor upon us.
Amen. Hayom tichtevenu lechayim tovim.
This day inscribe us for a blessed life.
Amen. Hayom tishma shabbateinu.
This day hear our pleas.
Amen. Hayom titmechenu bimin tzidkecha.
This day uplift us with your righteousness.
Amen.
I guess we're done. Yeah, we could give each other one more little blessing. What do you say? Just in case you don't come back later and get it later. So I'm going to ask Jim to kind of do this. I like the way you do this blessing. Will you do this? He's got a little way of doing this blessing now. You can go like elbow to elbow. Maybe that's the way we do this. Outside of your bubble, if you're outside of your bubble, there's a way to do this, right? There's a way to do it, to feel it, to be blessed by it. There's a way to get this blessing and share it with all the people whose lives you touch.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. When the upper worlds and the lower worlds find each other, it will be a secret, generous wisdom. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And every individual will be known as a version of God. Ken ken yehi ratzon. May this be God's will for you. Amen.